The value of retreats. That is going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. All right, so this particular topic came up from a couple of things. One thing being when I was in Melbourne teaching a few Qigong workshops. After one of the workshops, I was sitting down with people who had been at the workshop, and we were chatting about different things, and including plans for next year, and what am I doing next year, and that sort of thing. And one of the things that we talked about was the possibility of some Qigong retreats, and it was really good having that conversation, because as I was talking and we were talking together about retreats, I was saying, all the good things about going on a retreat, how valuable they can be, and just listing these things off. And then I realized, as I was saying all these things, I was like, this is sounding like a bit of a sales pitch for coming to a Qigong retreat, which wasn't my intention. I was just talking about wow, you can get so much value out of them, which is why I am planning to run at least, I don't know how many at this stage, but at least one or two or possibly more Qigong retreats next year, because I think they can be so valuable. And it was great talking with those people who were there about their ideas around retreats and different ideas. It gave me a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of motivation to put these plans into action. So the second part of why I thought oh yeah, I should really do a vlog on this is because I am releasing a survey about Qigong retreats around about now, sending it out to people to help feed into this planning for some retreats next year, to gather things like where in the world people would like to have a Qigong retreat, how long they would ideally like a retreat to be, or that would work for them. Just a few basic things around that, because that will inform my plans. It'll help me to try to shape whatever retreats I run and put them in the best format and best locations that are going to work for different people. Now, of course, not everything will be purely based off the survey. A lot of it will come down to practicalities of where, what locations and venues I find are available and that I can book at, costs, scheduling, all of these sorts of things that's going to come into it as well. But to get a little bit of information from people who might be interested in coming to a Qigong retreat, and yeah, let that shape and guide some of the research and planning that I do. So I will put a link to that survey in the in the description below. There's also going to be a link to it in the end of year review article that I write every year for Long White Cloud Qigong, so I might put a link to that as well. You might read some of the other stuff that's happened during the year. And it would be great if you're interested in a Qigong retreat. Yeah, please fill out the survey, and you can have your say, and that might affect where I go, how long I make them, those sorts of things. So that's sort of the inspiration for this particular topic. Now, what are some of those really good things, those valuable things about a retreat? I'm gonna, before I get too much into this, I will say in many ways, being able to go on a retreat, it is a bit of a luxury across a few different things. Yep, there's generally going to be cost associated with a retreat. There might be cost in traveling somewhere, cost in accommodation, cost in all of the activities and instruction and all that sort of thing. So that's a bit of a luxury to be able to do that. And then there's also the cost in terms of time, because often the people who a retreat is most valuable for are people who are very busy and have a lot of responsibilities, and so they really benefit from actually being able to have some time out from that. And that's a significant thing as well. For some people, the real luxury is having the money, the resources available to be able to go on a retreat. For other people, the money is not a problem, but the luxury is finding the time or creating the situation that allows them to have the time to have that retreat. And that could be getting away from work or business responsibilities. It can also be other responsibilities to do with family and so on. So I recognize that going on a full retreat may not always be practical for a lot of people, but there's so much value that comes from such beautiful things when you can. So it's a nice thing to, like, if you can fit it and plan for it, look ahead to it, and maybe even prioritize it if you recognize the value, which I'm going to get into. The flip side of that as well is that if you can't, for whatever reason, whether it be time, whether it be money, whether it be some other reason, you can't go like on a full retreat somewhere, there are ways that you can give yourself some of those benefits of a retreat on a smaller scale, just in your own life, in your own space, or a not too distant a space. And that can include things like, just scheduling some time out from your responsibilities, and a decent period of time that gives you some time to reset and gain perspective and so on. And you might not be able to take a week out, but you might be able to take a day out. Getting out of your ordinary environment to somewhere that gives you some fresh inspiration, that again can bring new fresh perspectives and so on. Even if that is getting out of your office or getting out of your home and going to a park, that's not too far away. And again, spending a decent period of time there, putting time on some of your practices, making that a priority, scheduling that, and all of these things, it can give you some of the benefits of a retreat. So I've said this up front early in the vlog, before I get into all of the reasons why a more full retreat can be really beneficial. Recognizing it's not always going to be attainable for everyone. Great if you can, but you can do other things to get these benefits to some degree that's suitable for you. All right, so what are some of the things that are really valuable about a retreat? Well, I think probably the first one is inherent in the word retreat. Withdrawing from, an ability to take some time out from all of your normal responsibilities, all of the things that keep you busy. That can be so valuable, because so often in life we're so busy with this, that, and the other things, we don't have the time or the energy or the focus to, even necessarily get perspective on some of the things that might be going on within us, within our lives, that might be out of balance. And even if we have some insight into that, while we're still busy with all the things that we need to do, it can be hard to make a shift, make a change, come up with a new approach, a new plan to address those things and bring them back into balance. So simply being able to step out of our normal busy routine and have time to focus, often on ourselves. Part of that focus might be on other things externally as well, but to have a focus outside of our normal responsibilities, that can be so valuable to give us that insight, that ability to have a new perspective, to be able to go back in and make deeper changes in our lives that bring us into more balance, into more harmony. Another part connected with that retreat is, if possible, to also not just get away from our routines, but also out of our environment, into a different environment. As I've mentioned in a few of the recent vlogs, our environment really does have a big effect on us. Now, if we can't change our environment too much, often we can make small changes, but if we can't get right out of our environment and so on, we have to work internally. But it's helpful to recognize that, our environment has a big impact. And so being out in a different environment, as well as just not having our responsibilities, but a different environment, that can give us fresh perspective, new ways of seeing things, and that can act as some impetus, a little bit of a catalyst for change. By being in a different environment, seeing things differently, we're able to reset ourselves, come in fresh, often go back to our old environment, ready to deal with it in a different way, or sometimes not go back to that old environment. Sometimes it's a case that being away from that, we realize, hey, I've got other choices. Maybe I'll go to a new environment instead. Many years ago, I went and it was kind of like an internship sort of work experience sort of thing, at a health retreat resort. And I don't remember how many weeks it was, but it was a few weeks. and just experiencing the ins and outs of how things worked at this health retreat. It was quite a big one. They'd have a lot of guests come through, and what they generally did, they were running a weekly program. So people would be there for a week, and then you'd have a new batch come in for another week. Some people would stay, and they'd stay for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and they'd just kind of roll through it. But you'd have all these different people coming, and obviously get to see the running of the retreat, and then also talk to all of the guests and get to know them a little bit, what's going on with them and their experience and so on. And one of the things that could be a little bit of an issue with this particular health retreat was, because they had a lot of just private individuals who would come to these health retreats, but then they sometimes also had businesses who would pay for their employees to come to these retreats, which is great, wonderful thing, taking care of your employee well-being. One of the issues was, though, that sometimes after these employees of different businesses came to the retreat, the outcome was they decided, actually, I don't want to go back to my old job. That was, maybe not what the business had in mind. I don't know, maybe it was sometimes. But yeah, it was like, actually, from being in a different environment, the perspective in terms of I've got different choices. And in the end, I think that's probably healthy for everyone. Healthy for that individual and healthy for the business too, because sometimes if it's not the right situation for someone to be in, the best thing is for them to move on and allow someone else to maybe fill that role. So being in a different location, retreating in that way too. Another part of this, being in a different location, is generally for a retreat, we will choose somewhere beautiful, somewhere where, well, particularly for a Qigong retreat, where there is rich natural environment, where we can draw on the energy of that natural environment. And the effect of this on our practice and on ourselves is not to be understated or underestimated. Being in a beautiful natural environment and drawing on that natural energy can make a big difference to our health, our well-being, our mindset, and also to our Qigong practice. It can really enrich our Qigong practice and give us a lot more energy to work with. And practicing in this way can help people to experience things within their Qigong practice that maybe they haven't experienced before. And certainly to, enrich it in ways that they haven't experienced before, and maybe get more benefits from their practice as well. So that's a big one too, having that natural environment. Another thing, being on a retreat. Now there's different types of retreats, of course. There are sometimes retreats that you do as a solitary thing, to be just by yourself, and those can be very valuable. Often on a retreat, and again, most typically on something like a Qigong retreat, you'll be doing it with other people. And then, so as well as being in a different physical environment out of your normal routine, you're interacting with different people. And this can be great, particularly, well, for a few different reasons. Basically, it gives you social connection, which can be a really valuable thing in our lives. Many people, because they're going through sometimes quite a deep experience on a retreat, will form friendships and connections that last for years and years afterwards, because they can bond very quickly with people. Even though it's a short space of time, they form deep connections, and that can be a wonderful, beautiful thing. It can also give you new perspectives from different people, as you'll sit and you'll talk about different things amongst the other activities you do on a retreat. Having people who are interested in some of the same things as you, again, if it's Qigong, you're both interested in Qigong, but have different perspectives, different life experiences, different things going on for them, can give you new perspectives for yourself, new inspiration to think about your own experience, your own life, and so on. And that can be really, really valuable as well, just that social interaction with other people. Another benefit of going on retreat, and again, specifically a Qigong retreat in this case, is, two parts to this. One, being able to practice without distraction. So even if in your day-to-day life you are able to, you're doing your Qigong practice regularly, and you're able to block off time where you set aside all of your other activities so you're not being distracted by them, you can focus on your Qigong practice, that's fantastic. We don't realize sometimes how much even just the fact that we have to do something later on in the day, it still is having an impact on our mind and therefore on our energy. When we're able to get away into a different space, a different environment, you know, on retreat, where we have blocked out the whole time, there is nothing else we have to do that day, apart from maybe eat, sleep, you know, shower, those sorts of things. There's nothing else pressing, nothing else we need to do. It gives us a whole different sense of time, where we can really relax more fully and go more deeply into our practice. And that can be a huge benefit in going deeper into your practice, really appreciating it further, drawing out new insight, new nuance, new appreciation. Another part, so a second part to this, so not just about not having the distractions, but the amount of Qigong practice that you might do on a retreat. Because again, day-to-day life, there's a certain amount you might do. What depends. You might manage to fit in 15 minutes a day, you might manage to fit in half an hour, a couple of hours maybe, but you have all the other things going on as well. On a Qigong retreat, it's likely that you're going to be able to spend, you know, multiple times during a day doing quite deep, quite relaxed, very present practices. And being able to do this over a period of time, over a number of days, can tend to have a cumulative effect. So you're both having a deeper experience within each individual practice session because you're free from distractions, you're in a beautiful environment, you're supported socially by the people who are around you. And also you're doing a lot of this over a period of time. You're kind of immersing yourself in it. This can often lead to significant progress in your Qigong practice, sort of breakthroughs, coming out of plateaus into new depths of understanding, appreciation of different practices as well. And it's quite common for people in a retreat environment to experience new things or things much more deeply than they have previously, even if they've done those same Qigong practices previously for some period of time, because it is such an awesome, beautiful opportunity to go deeper into them. So those are some of the benefits of retreats. I'm sure I haven't covered them all. I'm sure there'll be a lot more. Maybe if you have experience with retreats, you might, and you've got some of your own experiences, some of the benefits that you've had on retreat, you could put them in the comments below. That would be great. Share them with other people, or some different things you've experienced or thoughts about retreats. That would be great. Again, I will put the link to the survey in the description below. It would be great if you could fill that out. Once I have some retreats planned, I may even remember to put a link to those, to where you can find details about those below. If you're watching this vlog, you know, sometime well into the future, I might put those there. Or otherwise, I'm sure to make another vlog, you know, when we've got something planned. You go like, hey, here's a retreat coming up, and you might be interested to see if that's something you'd like to do. All right, I look forward to seeing you on another vlog soon.